All right, guys, here goes. Chapter 6 of The Talented Clementine. Let's get our screen so that we can see the pictures good. My mother opened the door, and Margaret's mother handed me over. "Oh, thank you so much, Susan," my mother said, as if it was a wonderful surprise. Then she closed the door. While I was explaining, she did so many "Clementine, whatever were you thinkin's?" that I finally stopped counting them. Then my dad came in and she told him about it, except she couldn't finish her sentences. "All for Condo Association meeting. Glued them on, spilled all over, smells like beer." Somehow my dad understood, and then I had to listen to all his "Clementines, whatever were you thinking?" too. "And besides all that," my mother said when he was done, "her sneakers are ruined." "Let me have them," my dad said. "Maybe I can get those bottle caps off." "No, Dad," I cried. "I need them for my act. I'm tap dancing in the talent show." Too late. My dad left. But I was in luck. A few minutes later he came back holding my sneakers with the bottle caps still on. "They wouldn't come off?" my mother asked. "Not in this lifetime," my father answered. "Are you saying—" my mother began. Then they stared at each other, and they both said, "Not me," at the same time. "I took her last month," said my mom. "I won't do it this time," I told them. "I'll be like a normal person." My father and mother just looked at me as if I'd spoken in Martian, which I am going to learn. Then they turned back to each other. "I really think I should stay here," said my dad. "What if the elevator breaks again and I have to call the repair service? But what if someone needs a drawing really fast? An emergency piece of art," my mother tried. "No, I'd better stay home." "If you take her, I'll make dinner every night for a week," my father offered. "I'll make dinner every night for 2 weeks," said my mother, "and do the dishes." My parents always try to bribe each other into taking me shopping, which I do not think is funny, but okay, fine. I take a really, really long time in stores. My parents think that I have a hard time choosing things, but that's not it. I can choose things just fine. The problem is whenever you have to choose something, that means you have to not choose about 100 other things, which is not so easy. Like in the candy store, if you choose peanut butter cups, you have to not choose red licorice and M&Ms and Starburst and bubble gum and Tootsie Rolls and gummy worms and pixie sticks. And no matter what you pick, as soon as you take the first bite, you suddenly know you wanted one of the other ones. Still, this time I could try. Today, I promised my parents, I'll be really quick. My parents just made faces that said, we've heard that joke before. Then my mom sent me to my room to change into dry overalls. When I got back, they were still at it. "I will make dinner and do the dishes for 3 weeks," said my father. "A month," said my mother. I flopped down on the couch to wait. When they got going like this, it could take a while. Finally, my father took all the money out of his wallet and held it out to my mother. "If you take her, you could buy a pair of shoes, too. My treat." "Well," my mother said, "well," and I could see she was thinking about it. And then my father said, "Plus, I'll take you out to dinner so you can wear them." My mother reached toward the money and then stopped. "We're not talking pizza or hamburgers, right?" "Absolutely not," promised my dad. "We're talking tablecloth and candles kind of place. It might even be—" "The Ritz," my mother warned him. The Ritz is the fanciest restaurant in Boston. It is very expensive, probably because it costs a lot to make all those crackers. "A deal," my dad said. My parents smiled at each other, and then they kissed, and here is a secret thing that I never tell Margaret or Mitchell. I like it when my parents kiss, even in public. On the way, to the shoe store, whenever we slowed down a little bit, people on the sidewalk would sniff at me and wrinkle their noses. "It's not what you think," my mother said every time. Then she made me walk even faster, which is not easy when you have 24 bottle caps on the soles of your shoes. When we got into the shoe store, right away I saw a great pair of bright green sneakers in the front window. I ran in and climbed up to get them. My mother grabbed me by my overalls and pulled me back. "That's the display window, Clementine. We need to find a salesman." And you will not believe how lucky I was, because right then I found one. He came running up behind me. "May I show you something?" he asked with a nervous look on his face. I pointed to the bright green sneakers, and my mother said, "Size 3.5. "Wonderful," said the salesman. "That's the line from our new popsicle line. It also comes in—" "No!" My mother tried to stop him. "That's fine. Please don't tell us the other." Too late. "Lemon, orange, coconut, grape, blueberry, mango, and pink grapefruit. Very popular." My mother threw her hands up and sank into a chair. "Bring 'em all," she said, "and bring them in size 4 too. We're going to be here a long time." The salesman went away. He came back with a big stack of boxes. He opened them up and laid out all the pairs in front of me in a big sneaker rainbow. Then he sniffed. He looked at my mother as if he couldn't believe what his nose just told him. "It's not what you think." My mother slumped down in her chair and sighed. "Oh, heck," she said. "Maybe it is what you think. I tried on all the popsicle sneakers." The salesman asked if I really had to test out each color by running across the store, climbing into a chair, and then jumping off. I guess he was new. Blueberry was the zoomiest, and pink grapefruit was the bounciest, so I put one on each foot and tried them out together. It was perfect, and it looked wonderful too, but the salesman said, "I don't think so." And I didn't even care, because right then I saw the most beautiful pair of shoes in the world on a shelf near the display window, purple, with tall, skinny high heels and sparkly green dragonflies at the toes. I pointed to them. "How about—" And before I could finish, both the salesman and my mom said, "I don't think so," at the same time. "Okay, fine," I said. "What other kinds of shoes do you have in this store?" "I can't watch this," said my mother. "Just make sure she chooses something sensible." She got up and whispered to the salesman. Then she went over to the grown-up shoes and started shopping. As soon as she was gone, I asked the salesman if he had a tattoo. You can never tell which adults are going to have one. There she is, jumping off the chair. And there are the sparkly shoes with dragonflies. "No," said the salesman. "Do you?" "Not yet," I said. "Pretty soon." You would not. Then he left to get some more shoes for me, and you would not believe how many pairs of shoes were in that store. My feet were exhausted from trying on, and my head hurt from all the not choosing I was thinking about. Finally, the salesman held up a pair of striped basketball sneakers. "This is it," he said. "These are the last shoes we've got." When he was lacing them up for me, I saw something amazing. "Hey, did you know that you have a circle right on top of your head where there's no hair?" I asked him. "Yes," he said. "I am aware of that. Thank you. Do you know that you smell like a brewery?" "Yes," I said. "I am aware of that. Thank you. And I'll take the lime popsicle sneakers." The salesman sighed. "I know that too," he said. "They're already in the bag at the checkout counter. Your mother told me you'd end up picking them." Then I went up to the register where my mother was waiting. I had made my mouth into a ruler line because I was so mad at her for knowing what I was going to do before I did it. I was never going to speak to her again. "Want to see what I bought?" my mother asked outside. I kept my mouth in a ruler line, but I nodded and opened up her bag. And then I didn't care about being mad. "Wow," I said. "Exactly," she said. "Wow." We stopped and just stared at those purple wow shoes. The heels looked even taller and skinnier. What do you think? What shoes do you think she picked? The next description will give you a clue. And the dragonflies sparkled in the sun like emeralds. They were so beautiful that I was suddenly cured of being afraid of pointy things. So Mom chose the dragonfly shoes. "Not very sensible," I said. "No, definitely not sensible," my mom agreed. "In fact, they're probably the least sensible shoes in the store. One of the benefits of being a grown-up." "Can I try them on?" Sure, she said. Then she leaned over and gave me a big, huge, smiling hug, even though I smelled like a brewery. After you've had a bath. And that is the end of chapter 6.